Bold prediction time. What do you believe in so much this fall that you would bet your own hard-earned money or perhaps your parents' hard-earned money on? Well, I'll tell you where we went immediately to start Chapter 6 of Bold Predictions. College Station, Texas. Adam said, point blank, Texas A&M wins under 6 games and Jimbo gets fired at the end of the season. Adam actually hails from Radford, Virginia. Well, these are as correlated as it gets. Normally, I don't care for it when you guys go with like double and triple predictions in one tweet because it just messes up my ranking system. But A&M winning fewer than 6 games and Jimbo being fired, they're correlated. Vegas would never let you parlay this, and I'd never let you parlay anything because we don't believe in parlays. I'm going to make this an 8.5. Not crazy. Jimbo wins under 6 games and he gets fired. Not crazy. Not expected, but not crazy. 8.5. Their over-under win total is also 8.5, as it turns out. They were 5-7 last year. I think we all remember that. I looked at their schedule earlier today. So let's just get down to brass tacks here for a second. If they are to win fewer than 6 games, we got to look here at the schedule. It's got to go pretty bad pretty quickly for them. So right off the bat, I'm telling you they got 3 wins against New Mexico, ULM, Abilene Christian. I'm going to go ahead and call those 3 wins. I need 3 more wins minimum out of the rest of these games. They're going to be favored by 6. It looks right now like they're favored by 6 at Miami. They're a 3-point favorite against Arkansas. They are 8.5-point dogs against Bama and against Tennessee. And by the way, you don't think this is a tough 4-game stretch? How about playing Auburn and then Arkansas and Dallas? Then Bama comes into College Station. Then you go to Knoxville. Boom, 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 boom. You want to know, by the way, why I don't think it's the most egregious sin in the world for SEC teams to play 8 conference games sometimes, whereas others play 9? It's because that's what a chunk of your conference schedule looks like. We'll get to that later on in the show. The last year, okay, so when you look at how bad their season was last year, they got the whole lost 5 games by 6 points or fewer stat, and there are differing opinions as to how valuable that is, but I don't think this is going to happen. Okay, if you want me on the record, I don't think Jimbo's going to get fired. I don't think they're going to miss out on a bowl game again. But the reason that I only made it an 8.5 on the boldness scale is because if you think about it, I have called Texas A&M the most potentially volatile program to watch this year, volatile team, because there's like so much variance in what could happen. It could either go really good or it could go really bad. And if I have to account for that possibility, the really bad possibility, I can't make this anything more than a 9 on the boldness scale. So even if I don't think it's going to happen, it's like, it's like you go to sleep and you let your buddy drive for 6 hours. You're either going to end up in the Rockies or you're going to end up out in the middle of Kansas. The classic Lloyd Christmas conundrum. And I don't think they're going to end up in Kansas, but that John Denver can be full of it sometimes. All right, let's continue. That's all a Dumb and Dumber reference for those unfamiliar. Jesse, you seen that? Yeah, wow, that's an upset. Clemson, according to Gage at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, thank you for watching, Gage, he said Clemson is going to be back in the playoffs and have the best defense in the country. You want a bold Clemson prediction? Me learning to pronounce that S properly in Clemson? That would be a bold prediction. Because you guys think I don't try, and I do. It's a hiccup. It's like a mnemonic hiccup of mine. This is a 9.5. I think I may have glossed over that. So Gage said, not only is Clemson going to make the playoff, they're going to do it with the number 1 defense in the country. Hey, I got to be honest with you, making the playoff is not the biggest hurdle here. Having the number 1 defense in the country is. And you may think out there, if you don't pay much attention to stats, oh, Clemson's always dominant defensively. Well, they're always pretty good defensively. They've only had the number 1 defense in the country one time since Dabo's been there, and that was during the Brent Venables era. He's gone now. They're coming off the worst statistical defensive year they've had since 2016. That was last year. They finished 23rd. And I'm supposed to believe they're going to vault right back up there. Lost 3 important players to the draft, and I'm supposed to believe, having recruited outside the top 10 a couple of years in a row, voluntarily forsaking the portal, that they have elevated their roster to number 1. I know they're going to be good. Number 1? I don't know about that. I'm making this a 9.5. I do not believe Clemson's going to have the best defense in the country. They may very well make the playoff, but that's less than half of this prediction if you really want me to slice the pie accordingly. Also, if you look at their schedule, thank you, Colin, right on cue, they play North Carolina, they play Florida State, South Carolina, Miami, Notre Dame, Duke, O'Reilly Leonard, and Duke to start the season. These are not easy offenses to go up against. And so number one defense is a stretch. That's a 9.5 for me. Next up, it's a multi-tiered, a multifaceted prediction again. But it's your predictions, not mine. Gary said, I've been leaving a bold prediction in the comments on YouTube, but I've seen you read them on Twitter. So I have a good one. Notre Dame's going to beat Ohio State. Ohio State's going to beat Michigan. Please see this. I really want to hear your opinion. Well, Gary, here's my opinion. This is an 8.5 on the boldness scale. We already have lines on these games. Ohio State, I believe, Jesse, what week does this game happen? It's not week 2, right? It's week 4 maybe? Week 4, yeah, because that's the same week Florida State goes to Clemson. So Notre Dame hosts Ohio State, week 4. Buckeyes currently a 7-point favorite. Remember, this game was pretty back and forth last year. It wasn't so much back and forth, it was just close. And then Ohio State, I think they won. They scored 21. That was their lowest output of the season. It was tied with that like hurricane game they played against Northwestern, basically. But Notre Dame did a pretty good job limiting them last year. I can't say I'm crazy about the matchup of Notre Dame's secondary against the Ohio State receiver corps this year. Of course, your counter to me could be, well, who's throwing them the ball? I hear you. Sounded like a smoker. I hear you. Okay, that's only part 1. Part 2 is Ohio State then goes on the road and beats Michigan. So Buckeyes back against the wall. As our buddy J.C. Sherbert would say, they would be in the proverbial wounded animal mode had they already lost to Notre Dame. Now they're going into the big house. Remember, they're still undefeated in conference play in this scenario. But the playoff hopes are on the line here, most likely. They are, the Buckeyes, a current 2.5-point dog against Michigan. And that game is forever from now, so that could very well change. Just think about that, by the way. If Ohio State did lose in upset fashion to Notre Dame, because these are the 2 games on their schedule everyone's circling, and if they lose that first one, such drama, such a tightrope walk for the rest of the year for Ryan Day, his coaching staff, that team. It could actually serve them well. We've seen that happen many times before. And I also feel the need to remind you, I don't need to bake in added drama to Ohio State, Michigan, because the Ohio State Buckeyes right now are trying to avoid something that last happened it's pre-Y2K. Yeah, pre-Y2K. The last time they lost 3 in a row to Michigan was 95, 96, 97. The Braves won the World Series one of those years. They cost themselves the World Series the next year. And 97 was the Eric Gregg fiasco in the NLCS. And that's how my mind works when it comes to the 90s. I correlate college football occurrences with Atlanta Braves division championship runs. This is an 8.5. That's what that is for me. Last bold prediction for this evening. We've got one that takes us all the way to Seattle, Washington. How about this? Washington becomes the first Pac-12 team since 2014 to make the national championship game. And unlike TCU, makes it competitive. This is such a sign of the times. And I'm not trying to hate on Washington. Really good team. And I'm not trying to hate on the Pac-12. I can't. I'm Pac-12 Pate. These are like my children. These programs are like my kids. But the boldest prediction that our friends on the West Coast can muster now is just one of our teams is going to make the title game. Not even win it. We're just going to make the title game. Now, what do you say to that, buddy? Well, I say it's a 9 because even having said that, there is a difference. Well, there's a difference between making the playoff and making the title game. Now, TCU did show us last year it's possible to do one and then get completely splattered all over the place in the next. But they did make it. I'm going to call this a 9 because I think the Pac-12 schedule is no joke this year. And Washington's got about as high an expectation as pretty much anyone out there, but they got a road, especially after their bye week that includes Oregon coming in there. They go to USC. They've got Utah. They go to Oregon State. Now, as you'll notice on there, they do avoid some teams that would be tough draws, but eventually if you don't even play them in the regular season, you would play them in the Pac-12 championship game. They could, if they make it, play Oregon twice or play USC or Utah twice. So having said all that, that pass defense has got to be better. You know, you remember Michael Penix, and I'd be very, very curious, by the way, who they may have a quarterback advantage over in some of these hypothetical matchups in the semis, but their pass defense was 100th in the country last year. That's got to get better. I'm going to make that a 9. It's tough to make the national championship game. I'm going to make that a 9.